Hello and welcome everyone to Deconstructing the Construct, episode 20. Time being what it is, who knows? Yeah, time flies, huh? 20. Interesting. I'm not sure what was just shared prior to me turning up. But there's a couple of things I wanted to go over today. From this end, there has been some work done over the last since Friday night our time. And that, I believe, has reverberated, you could say, and been felt throughout all dimensions. And there has been a bit of panic and blowback. The more, confirmation that the veils between these perceived dimensions are dropping or thinning or whatever, and that the work that we do here is reverberating in a way that it never has before, I don't think. And there's a process of transparency happening based on my experiences and those around me and those I work with. I have had an understanding that these dimensions are artificially separated. Veils were put in place, and that each realm, each dimension, whatever you want to call it, feels like it is, or thinks it is, all there is, that there's nothing above it. And they're beginning to find out just how they have all been played and manipulated in a way that I don't think has been known before. Which brings me also to the next thing I want to talk about, which may well be a way that we have also been played that we didn't realise. Talked a bit on this call, as well as the one people before that, about chakras, kundalini, almost robo. Screen is shifting. Okay. One moment. What about now? Okay. There's no computers on out there, is there? No. So what I was saying was, we've talked about chakras, and some people think the pineal gland and the kundalini energy, and certain things are implants. And there are, in a lot of spiritual what do you call them these days? Philosophies. The emotional and the mental are referred to as bodies: emotional body, mental body, physical body, spiritual body. And they're always, at least in my experience, depicted as something outside of the physical. What if the emotional body is actually an imposed layer that is manipulated and harvested from. Empathy is seen as something to revere. There's been a lot of us who've talked about going through a moment in this awakening process where you feel like you disconnect. You feel like you lose your empathy or your compassion or your love. I think you question that at first because it's such a shock. But I have a feeling at this point that what it is a disconnection from this emotional body and the manipulation of emotions into a place of your true heart, which is just about knowing. How do I put this? People who say they're an empath, find it very difficult to be around people, to be out in public, to be, and find it difficult. They talk about at least finding it difficult to feel centered. Everything around us seems to be designed to evoke certain emotions. All of the entertainment, certainly the news, but there is a difference once you get past or let go of, I'm not sure whichever way it goes, this empathic feeling, you move into a knowing that is not emotional based. Basically what I'm trying to say is the evidence is showing up for me that we need, that I need at least, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, to get past these triggered, manipulated emotions and go into true heart core and into the knowing that's within that. If you are someone who considers yourself an empath, I mean, let's face it does get revered by the New Age community. Oh, I'm an empath, and that's something that makes me something special, maybe, I don't know. But it makes you manipulatable and controllable. And anything that does that, I think, needs to be looked at, personally. But I'm seeing anything that's portrayed as outside of us as potentially being an imposed form of control. Exhausted is what it makes me. Yeah, that too. It is exhausting to constantly have your emotions played and being so affected by those around you, by what you're confronted with. And it feels like it pulls us out of our sense of place of power and knowing. You don't need to take on somebody else's emotions or state of mind in order to feel compassion or love or understand or to be of assistance. feels like it. And the karmic veil, like I say, comes easier, where you think you love someone, but actually it's only the old program you are still under. Okay. Does anyone like vehemently oppose what I'm saying? Or have it? Oh, no. Okay. Okay, cool. That's interesting. I thought I was going to get at least a couple. Interesting. Can I ask some of you who have felt that you are empaths or you feel that way, how it affects you? Hands up, anyone? I've been working on this for the last week or so. Oh, okay. Okay, so, okay. JJ. Oh, where'd you go? I lost you. There you go.
Yes. I'll turn your voice on now. I think I've got to maybe trademark, like, if you don't mind. Anyway, back before I knew I was an empath, I felt all those emotions, all that external stuff and whatever, and I just figured it was just normal. I mean, I could feel someone else, but I knew that there was an aspect of me involved in it as well, but I never associated it as being an invasion or an invasive kind of a thing. It was just the way it was. And since the light bulb has gone on and the door remains closed, the realization that I am an empath starts to click, and all kinds of associations and whatever start to make a lot more sense. And yada yada yada. But what it strikes me as is that I learned how to control those emotions. I learned how to limit their impact, if you will. I learned how to recognize them and know that, okay, yeah, they're there. Do they help? Do they hinder? Is it good, bad, whatever? So the recognition and the greater degree of grasping of the situation, emotionally, mentally, and intellectually, blah, 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 all that stuff, was enhanced. It's kind of like turning lemons into lemonade kind of a deal. They're still there, and now I can, I won't say control them, but I can recognize them for what they are, and then deal with it as such. In other words, that's an external, that's an internal, whatever. But one of the consequences of that was I tended to limit my exposure to people who gave into their emotions and kind of ran with it and just kind of used it as sometimes as a shield, sometimes as a sword, sometimes as a way of manipulation. I mean, all the different ways we can use emotions. But a bunch of the people that used them to manipulate and control people, I just disassociated with them. I just left it. I just, I don't need that. It wasn't helpful. I could deal with it, and I still can. It's just that it wasn't enjoyable, I guess you might say. It just wasn't. It didn't promote growth. I'd already figured that part out. So I just.
Well, let me take it one step further, because I think part of this, the spiritual, the energetic awakening process, includes becoming one with. So you can tune into a tree, an animal, another person, and become one with. But it's part of a process, and it's like everything else. It's like once you get to a certain point, there's always something to catch you and keep you there. So rather than go through that process and hone that skill and move beyond it into a place of, okay, I can get to a place of resonance and then to a place of knowing, perhaps the New Age movement or whatever jumped on that and said, well, we can't have them going any further, so we'll label it empathic, you're an empath, and then they'll be happy to sit there. All right, and then we can play with their emotions and, harvest. So I do think learning how to become one with or in resonance with is part of the process. But it's not, we're infinite beings, so there's no end to this process. But there are little stopgaps and traps everywhere to get us stuck. I think that's how it feels to me. So what you've done is go take that next step. That's how that sounds to me.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Thank you for sharing. We've got a few hands up at the moment. Okay, Jewel? You're unmuted, darling.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. I can remember, and this is going to sound really strange, a time when empathy was our main form of communication. But that was a time before violence. And what would happen was it was a form of control. It was, you didn't hurt others because it hurt you. But that was a time of very much in harmony where things were peaceful. And that changed when a huge whack of violence and hurt and pain collectively hurt our humanity and broke our connections with other people and with source and with the land.
See, what you're describing is what I'm calling the knowing.
Yeah, well, I can remember that.
Not what we've collectively called empathy.
Now what we've collectively called empathy. Now, when I was holding space for the world, it's strange again, it was so that people could realise their knowing. But what I found was after the eclipse, that changed, and I no longer needed to hold that space because they have to realise their own knowing now. And now I hold that empathic space at a higher level of vibration, and I haven't been down. I mean, I don't allow other people's emotions to get me down, but I did allow it to see, to hold space and to help support others in their healing. But I don't need to do that now, as everyone that I'm now associated with and in my communities, they've already gone past that point and are back to heart speak or heart talk, heart resonance. But it did serve its purpose throughout my youth of being able to learn to, on my own, as, was it JJ said, recognize my own emotions and separate them out from other people's emotions.
Yep.
Yeah. That's me.
Thank you. I can't, not anymore, I don't think, Tula, by the way. Okay, we've got a few more. We've got Karen.
Hi.
Hi.
I guess I was just following kind of a, progression in my own life. And, I think that part of the whole idea behind trauma is to, split off those aspects of yourself. And I remember when I was 21, and I was in a treatment, facility, and, they do that hot seat thing. I have 60 people around me in a circle grilling me. And I'm just, totally in control, no problem. And one of the elderly guys says to me, "Are you sure you're only 21? And that was like a big thing to me, because I realized that I was totally not in touch with my emotions. Okay. But I also got feedback from other people who would not come near me because I exuded so much pain, they couldn't handle it, you know? So first there was a process of getting, because once you split off people to that degree, you know, totally from their emotions, you have the mental body that surrounds the emotional body, and the mind control comes through the mental body, and they want you operating totally from your mind. Now, most people do have their emotional body. Well, then the mind controls the emotional body. That's where there's news and entertainment, so-called entertainment. So you get in touch with that emotional thing, you know, then I deal with my own pain. And then I notice, holy shit, and this is what you call empathy. I'm feeling everybody else's too. And so then, you know, I go through this process of what's mine and what's not mine. Okay. And as I go through this process and time goes on, I notice that I don't want to be empathetic. You know, I have my own memory of horrific pain. And whenever I tried, you know, once I was able to separate mine from theirs, I didn't want to go near it, you know. And so, you know, there's this kind of disconnect that happened. And I thought I'd lost my compassion. I'd lost my, you know, humanness, you know, because that's what we equate with humanity, you know, empathy and, you know, compassion. And I think they're two different things. I think empathy is a hijack of compassion, you know, which comes from your heart. So, yeah, I went through that process of no, once that disconnect happened, there was a knowing that kind of encompasses everything. It's not like you don't know what those feelings are that other people are experiencing. You know what, on a I think a deeper core level that gives you the space to actually enable the other being to process that pain and all that stuff themselves. If you engage in it, it kind of keeps them there. At least that's my experience. I'm done.
You're muted. I haven't heard anything you've said after I said.
Oh, I'm muted. Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Okay. What I was saying was, sorry. God, it's just it's Tuesday. That my own, over the last 6 months, my own ways of working energetically have expanded and grown and changed. And when I'm working on someone with a healing, for example, I can physically feel what they're feeling. I can feel the emotions often. It's changed. It really has. But I'm not equating that with empathy. It's a different, it's completely different. I mean, I can feel the pain in my physical body, and yet I know it's not mine. And it goes once the work is done. I can feel the emotions that they're feeling. I can, you know, often trace to its source, all kinds of things, but it's not empathy. It's beyond that. It's a knowing. And I think we've labeled certain things empathy. or had them labelled for us and thrown into this basket. And just saw people's videos out. And it's been almost revered, and I think it's designed to keep us stuck. There is such a harvesting energy around empathy. If we can be blown around by these emotions to such an extent, by other people's feelings, by other people's thoughts, that's not balanced. You're not in your own power. And there is so much that I'm looking at that I am just sort of re-looking at with fresh eyes, hopefully, to discern what is really me. What is the actual makeup of my being and what isn't, And I think this whole idea of an emotional body and a mental body, anything that's layered over us or supposedly an extension of us from outside, may not be. You're unmuted again, Karen. If you...
Oh, I did not unmute myself, I don't think. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Put your hand up. And Sue wanted to say something but couldn't put her hand up. So you're unmuted, Sue.
Oh, I don't know what to say now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. No, it's just about the empathy, or are we empathic or are we empaths? Do we feel or do we absorb? It's all a bit weird sometimes, because there's times when in the old days I'd open my laptop, I'd have Facebook on or whatever, and there'd be all these emotions and I'd get really upset, but not knowing why or who or what was coming at me. But it's almost as if all I can explain is almost like a tap was turned on, and all of a sudden I've absorbed all this emotion. I'm sat there crying my eyes out and thinking, what the fuck, I've not even had a cup of tea, so it's all a bit odd.
I know exactly what you mean, because you do go through a part of the process where you can feel the energy behind the written word,
Yeah, but this is without reading anything.
That doesn't
This is just opening it up. Sometimes it's like whoosh, it's like, oh my god. But sometimes then on another side of it, I can read something really sad, and I'm just anything to do with animals, and I'm just sobbing my heart out like it's personal. And then there's a cut off, not so much to do with the animals, but then with certain people and things, then there's just a cut off, and I'm just like, I said on the main Zoom room, it's at the moment, it's almost like with the emotions, it feels like, those game shows when they have like a clock and it has prizes and they spin the wheel and you win a prize. Well, for me at the moment, it almost feels like it's emotions, and it's almost like, but the thing is, the emotions are splitting within microseconds. And 1 minute I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm pissed off, I'm fucked off, I'm happy, and I'm going through. And my God, the last what day are we? Monday. The last 5 days have just been so, and personal challenges, and more so today. I was walking, and I didn't know what year I was in. I didn't know where I was. I knew it was autumn. I could smell autumn. I'm walking down the road, and sorry, this is going off a bit off topic, but I'll share it anyway. I did put it on the chat, but I was walking down the road to the seafront after being in the shop. I saw a car registration. The last 3 letters were Neo, and I'm thinking about what year is it? Where am I? And it was Neo, as in the Matrix. And then as I carried on, a van went past and it had Kelly Communication on the side, so communication. Another car had like fives on it, but to me it seemed like high five. And then the next registration, which is quite interesting, it actually had JJ, who JJ has always got, you know, a lot of wisdom to share on here. And then as I went further down, there was a red car, and it was, the car registration was Joy, Joy, Joy. So, and that was just within one road, like a minute, you know. But anyway, for what it's worth, sorry, I went off the topic, but it's all a bit odd at
it
the
actually
moment.
does lead into something else.
Oh, okay.
The last 4 or 5 days. So we've also talked recently about certain frequencies leaving. You know, as this is being, oh, there goes our back lady. Should be the last time we have to hear her, actually.
Oh, bless.
God bless. The last 4 or 5 days, it does feel like there has been another deletion, you could say, of certain frequencies. There she blows, yeah. And for those who have been, which probably means all of us, traumatized at some point, what I'm seeing is a lot of the, I guess, lowest frequencies that we've been holding on to, possibly from our own personal experiences, coming up and out. And I do feel that this is very much a clearing, but it does feel like the bottom run has been pulled out again. So if you've had an emotional week, it may be that if you're finding yourself being triggered to, say, evoke past trauma, it could be because it needs to come up and out. It's not that you're in a loop. It's not that you're how do I put this? I guess in the loop is the best thing. But I've always said when it comes to these things that they wave at you on the way out when you're healing and clearing something, whether it's a physical ailment or an emotional or trauma or whatever. It always waves at you on the way out. And this particular clearing that seems to be happening is very, very personal. And so the choice point, there's always a choice point with these things, what I've seen. The choice point here is to finally let the stuff go, let the trauma go, let the emotions around it go, or stay stuck. And staying stuck is not really going to be a long-term option because it just won't be supported anymore. So there's a lot of people, I think, going through some really, really deep letting go. The stuff that probably got created in childhood. But it's far, well, at least as far back as childhood. The deepest of fears. Those emotions like fear and shame and guilt and self-worth, like that stuff. The stuff that really does hold us back and debilitate us and make us manipulatable. That's the stuff that's coming up and out. The stuff that holds us into cycles and patterns and loops. And it's painful. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. No 2 days are the same, as I've been saying for a while now, but now it's like no 2 hours are the same sometimes.
No 10 minutes are the same.
No 10 minutes are the same. But that's another aspect of what's going on right now, it feels like. And it honestly feels like about every 2 weeks now. And it'll probably get faster and faster. but I would say every 2 weeks for the last 6, there's whatever happens to be the base frequency has been pulled or deleted or whatever. And we're not getting much time. I mean, on the one hand, be careful what you ask for, right? Because we've asked to speed this shit up and let's get it done. And yet we're already at a point where we're really just not getting much time in between to adjust and become balanced and centered again before the next thing hits. Is anybody relating to what I just said in terms of those emotions and those things coming up? Karen, have you got your hand up again, or have you just not put it? You're unmuted.
Thank you. I can't unmute myself for some reason. Yeah, it's not childhood stuff, for me, but for the last few weeks, it's been grief and anger, which I've shared, with the group. Grief over a particular incident, of course, death of somebody. And Saturday, I went to my body work person. He does body memory recall stuff. And usually I'm releasing grief, grief and rage and, things like that. Well, I went Saturday and I felt there had been a shift. This was the 16th, that there had been a shift. So I went there, and what I experienced that was released from me, he was totally perplexed afterwards, because he usually can pick up on stuff, but he couldn't pick up on this, because I started crying, and I said, well, what it was relief tears, relief and joy. Relief and joy is what I experienced, and it was amazing. I can tell you I've only experienced joy one other time in my life for about 20 seconds, about 35 years ago. I knew what it was. I don't know what triggered it. I was driving. I held on to it for as long as I could, and I knew, and the message I got was, to the degree that you have experienced pain, to that degree you will experience joy. Keep going. And Saturday, I experienced that joy again, all over my body. And so my question is, as these so-called negative things are released, are other higher energies like joy and stuff able to then hook in or be felt or register or whatever? Thank you.
They're not buried under all that other stuff. And I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
You have a cheer squad in the background.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, when it's always there. It just gets buried under everything else you expressed: anger and frustration and pain and trauma and sadness and all that other stuff. Okay, that's wild. I'm very happy for you, darling. And you've you threw me, so I forgot what I was going to say. Because it had to do with the last few days. Damn it.
Coming up. Wrestling.
Huh?
Coming up. Finalising. I don't know.
No, what was it? It was important. Well, it was to me anyway in that moment. You talk about your body talk practitioner. No, it'll come back. Clearing, yeah, ramping up. Oh, hang on. Okay, that's right. So our lovely Peter, who does the dowsing, noted the 17th, which was Sunday, as a day where certain energies would merge. And I think as we're building up to these energies merging, so in those days leading up to it, it may have contributed to this clearing process, because as they merged, they also refined, I think. So we had to let go of anything that didn't resonate or wasn't held, supported. He also has noted the next round of chaos energy coming in, which I think starts on can be 20th, tomorrow?
You got pushed earlier. Yeah.
Today now? Okay, so last time we've had chaos energy come in, all hell broke loose on Facebook for one. But it could express itself in a bunch of different ways, obviously. I'm still expecting some kind of public disclosure. Oh, I just got a real, when I said that, about something or someone. And I mean mainstream. And I don't know who or anything, but, and of course I don't watch mainstream, so I'm going to have to rely on you guys to tell me. But it feels like, yeah, someone very public, perhaps political even, I'm not sure, is going to get something. But, and there'll be chaos. That's just one way it feels like it might express itself. But, yes, to everybody who's private messaging me, I've noticed. Yeah, take your pick, Tom, hey? What's with the Red Cross? Oh. Okay, I want to hear more about the Red Cross and see if it's the same thing I've heard. NASA, Hillary, Podesta, Obama, Dark State. Yeah, but none of these things, to my knowledge, have really made mainstream. Bucket fire bomb on the London Underground. Is this all stuff that's going on in the last couple of days? Brad Johnson, the reality whisperer, also says there's a shift all this week. Huh. There was a video that I did see during the Irma where a guy was out the front of a Red Cross, I think it was a Red Cross shelter, and a reporter came up to him and said, why haven't you gone inside? You know, why are you trying to hold out the front? And he said he went to go in yesterday but found that everybody inside was being killed. The Red Cross was killing everybody. Now, this was on mainstream news. The reporter very quickly shut him down. But you have to ask, why would they even air it? And to create a hell of a lot of fear, why even air it? Even though you've got the reporter shutting him down, how did that make it to air is what I'd like to know. The footage that I saw of all the shelters were empty. There was half a dozen people in some of these places that looked like they could accommodate hundreds. There was obviously something very, very fishy around the whole thing. So what, can someone come out, give me anything on the Red Cross that you're missing people? Yeah. Oh, because it was live. Oh, I see. But even then there's a delay. Like you usually have at least a 7-second delay. Stealing all the donations. Yeah, they've never given more than 0.8 cents of every dollar to the people. Taking hot meals away from people. And there's a clip. Which clip's that, Russ? The one I was referring to with the guy? Reselling water that was donated. Interesting. Yeah. All these so-called charities, huh? All right, Russ, you're unmuted. Russ, you're unmuted.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I just did a search. I think this is the right one. I haven't watched it through. I think it was, maybe not. If this is the right clip, it was live. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, live. See up on the, oh, you can't see it. Yeah, it was live. That's why it made air.
Okay. Well, no wonder you got shut down so fast then. But has anyone done any research to either confirm or deny? Do you know? Oh, it was Salvation Army, not Red Cross, that one. Okay. Oh, Russ, if you muted yourself now, you can't unmute to answer me. There you go.
Oh, hi, what? What did you say? I'm sorry. I was trying to look and see if I could find any more information on the clip since then. I was kind of in a research mode. What did you say? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Well, there's a comment here that the reporter called the homeless man and his dog by name. Sounds a bit staged. But I was just wondering whether anybody else had done any, you know, like Crow or anybody else had done videos on it.
I've seen this clip embedded into a couple of other illustrative clips by other people, but it's the same clip. I've not heard any more about it, but I will give it a bit of research right now just because now I'm interested.
Okay. Richie from Boston's done a few. Yeah, he's always all over that stuff. And I'll let you know, as we talked about I think about 4 or 5 weeks ago, if it was that long, because, you know, time and all that, the frequency of fear leaving, I think that played into a lot of these contrived hurricanes, was to make up for the lack of fear that needed to be evoked. A plain truth as well on YouTube. Okay. Thank you, Curtis. And it's interesting, I wonder if we can actually relate or relay or correlate these frequencies leaving and the emotions with it, and then what gets played out in the mainstream in order to make up for it. You know, are we going to be able to correlate and use it as confirmation? Okay, someone just made the comment, they are hungry, it's getting ugly. I felt a shift with that too this week. Because there are certainly times when we do energetic work where the blowback is instant. And you can feel the chaos, you can feel the planning and the okay, here it comes. It feels like the number, the sheer, yeah, I guess the number is the best, of opposition or individuals that make up the opposition is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Which might mean that their response has to be more extreme because they've got to make up for lack of numbers. But that's all I can, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like the mass, this energetic mass that makes up the control system is getting less and less dense. That's another way of describing it. Now, I don't know where the numbers are going. I don't know whether they're defecting. I don't know whether they're making a different choice. I don't know whether they're leaving. I don't know what the hell they're doing or where they're going. But it doesn't feel like there is as many. Has anybody else got a sense of that at all? The control system shrinking and thinning out. Yeah. Okay, Tom feels it too. I mean, there was a definite sensation a while back that, or over actually on many occasions, that more and more people disconnected from the hive mind, and there was the split between the hive and the collective, and that their resource pool of us to draw from was getting smaller and smaller because more and more people are waking up and seeing the bullshit. And this is a different feeling. It's the opposite. It's like the pool of them is getting smaller and smaller, which is probably why they need to be so extreme. Okay, you're unmuted, Karen.
Yeah, I have felt the same thing, Lisa. And I think it's, from what I've been feeling into anyway, that it's a combination of these dense frequencies leaving. I mean, fear has been their number one go-to. I mean, that's their foundational control grid, is fear. If fear leaves, anger, all these denser energies that they've been able to use to control us are leaving. And at the same time as those are leaving, more people are waking up, which increases our numbers. The two are coming together. I don't think there are fewer numbers of them necessarily. I think that the ball of power or whatever energies that they've been able to use against us to their advantage has deteriorated. I'm feeling that their energetic power base is deteriorating, but not necessarily their numbers. And then I thought, well, it is all about energy and whatnot. Well, now they're rolling out this 5G thing. And I think that's also, they knew that this was going to be happening. And so they need to install another grid, 5G grid, to compensate for it. That's just my thoughts on it.
Well, you just reminded me too that there's definitely, we talked about this a few weeks back, that as these lower frequencies are leaving, everybody, the us and the them, reach a choice point. If that is your base operating frequency and it's leaving, you're no longer supported here. You have a choice point to move up to the next one or get the hell out. So if a lot of them were operating at that base frequency and it's no longer supported, then maybe they are actually leaving in one way, shape or form. Because for me, it really does feel like the numbers are thinning. And I personally only saw, what did I say, about 22. And they were specifically Dracos who made a choice, a positive choice, a choice for themselves to step up and be heart-based. But who knows who else saw many others do the same thing. And then there'll be those who chose a different choice. And maybe they're just not supported here anymore. It just can't exist here anymore, if that's your base frequency. I don't know. JJ?
Yes. Another wrinkle on this seems to me, if the feedback of manifestation, if there's more immediate, in other words, what you do, the intent you put forth comes back that much quicker, and all these guys performing all this fuckery are getting that too. In other words, the harder they try, the more it hits them on their head. That's going to make you kind of stop and wonder, like, what the hell's going on? It never happened this way before. Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
So if they're getting hammered by their own actions, that's going to make them at least pause, if not just stop or delay or something. And what they do beyond, I mean, if it happens over and over and over, I mean, it isn't just a one shot, it's just more and more and more immediate. And with the bigger impact of the implications and the content, if you will, of those actions start hitting them upside the head, I think they're getting in fear of the fear they're trying to instill.
I can't help but think that if they really were as powerful as they would like us to believe, and they really had the ability to do everything that we believe they want to do, that we would be in a far worse state than we are in right here, right now. And we'd have been in that far worse state for a long time. Would we be having these conversations publicly?
Go ahead.
Would we be having these conversations publicly?
Another wrinkle, it seems to me that they really don't have that much power. The power resides in us collectively. And what they are masters at is the manipulation of that collective consciousness so that we achieve for them what their goals are.
Yep.
And that whole infrastructure is breaking down. That's weakening, that's getting thinner. And because as they try to manipulate, it folds back on them more and more and more. And we're seeing it in the complement. The more we intend to create something, the faster, the more complete, the better, blah, blah, blah. It happens for us. So it's happening across the board. It's not just them or just us. It's your intent. And that's what they're masters at, is manipulating our intent via the collective consciousness. So the harder they try, the worse it gets.
Oops.
Well, this was an idea, a concept that came up long ago. This isn't new. This isn't mine. I'm just regurgitating stuff I heard from elsewhere, and it makes perfect sense. You can't have the universe only work on certain groups. It's across the board. It's everybody, and the shift that we're sensing and being part of and encouraging and creating and all that interaction stuff applies to everybody, everywhere. And so what you intend and the consequences, that creative act, you've got to be responsible for what you create. Well, that responsibility is in your face now, or their face. We're seeing it as, hey, this is pretty cool. I can do this. Now we got to learn, how to create. What do we want to create? The means, the method, all that kind of refining, twiddling of the knobs and getting it focused to where it's optimally beneficial for all involved or whatever. That's not their goal. That's not their aim. They're trying to fuck with us, and they're getting fucked with.
And the thing that's really apparent to me over the last few weeks is that this is so multidimensional now, or at least our ability to see the multidimensional aspect of it is getting clearer and clearer and clearer.
Yeah.
This isn't just happening here. It's happening everywhere. And it's all, I keep being reminded of that little, what I call my beast vision from back in 2013, where I saw all the harvesting structures on each of the dimensions. What have you done? And how each of the harvesting structures in each of the dimensions collapsed. And that's what I feel like I'm physically feeling happening now. I saw it back then, but if that's what it feels like is happening right now. And for every disclosure that happens on every level is felt by every level. And I think the shock and the the blowback is happening throughout them all too. Because everyone who thought they would just fuck up with those people are finding out they're being fucked with by those people. And there is control, there is harvesting, and there is manipulation all throughout the construct. And I mean, this concept that, you know, once you get to 5D, it's all fabulous and everything's all light and love, it's bullshit. Or 6, or 8, or whatever perceived dimension. Anything that's inside this construct, and I think everything that we can perceive of, there's manipulation and control and fraud and deceit and ego and
lots of agendas.
Lots and lots of agendas. And it may get less and less, but it's still there to some extent. And oh, shit! Something just hit me. Was that blowback or was that confirmation? I'm not sure. Anyway, disclosure.
If I might, a side note. I woke up this morning and I felt like everything was surreal. Not like a Dali painting where like, oh my God, but there was this tint to it. It was this kind of a shade of surrealness to everything. It was kind of like the dream state was, I won't say more real. It had a surreal quality to it too, but the normal, like, you know, physical reality seemed more unreal. So, and I've been noticing that how to put it, the range of reactivity to this space that we're in right here, right now, is very wide and very broad. I mean, energy surges, surrealness, realizations, releases, you know, no, all this stuff. It's going faster.
I know, and it's hard to keep up. It really is. Karen, you're unmuted too.
It's interesting you brought up this multidimensional aspect of, for lack of better words, the awakening. But because I've been thinking about this very thing for this last week, and then I just kept thinking that I don't like to think in terms of dimensions, but I think more in terms of densities. Okay. And this quote unquote third density being the densest. All right. Which means we have the most extreme level of duality as well. So as you move up in densities, less dense, the range of duality decreases. Okay. So there's not much duality, say, at the 10th density or whatever the fuck. Okay. So as we decrease the duality or resolve things on the third density and release these things, and it moves up into the next lower dense realm and so forth, the rate at which these denser energies, fear, terror, whatever, trauma, the rate at which they're released throughout these lower densities is much faster as you go up. It's just shooting up. And so beings, whatever, at these other densities are going to perhaps wake up faster than some of us here still that are asleep on the third density. Okay. Because you did say that Lilu indicated that these other densities weren't aware that they were in a fucking construct. We're basically the first to wake up. So if you think about it, as we wake up, but they wake up even faster because it's less dense, less dualistic. And so I'm feeling a lot more of those densities impacting this one now. And I've been trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And perhaps that may be it. Thoughts?
Well, I think in part because the veils, I guess we call them, that are separating those densities are thinning. So everything is reverberating through a lot quicker and easier. That's one aspect of it. If we were the first, I mean, okay. So to me, the construct was it was whole. It was complete. All the densities, there was no densities. And there was an artificial breaking up of it. We've used the Rubik's Cube analogy before. It's like, took a cube and we chopped it up. And these fences, frequency fences were put in. Veils, frequency fences. So, but I still exist. So I exist throughout all of them. We all do. And we call this our higher self, or our fifth dimensional self, and our galactic self, and our God knows what else. And we're in a process of all of that becoming whole again as these fences come down. So if this 3D aspect of me has a realization or a knowing or an experience, it's going to be felt by all aspects of me in a way that it hasn't been before, perhaps, and vice versa. Because there are times where I feel like this knowing, this memory, something comes in and I know it's from a particular aspect of myself that's just had an aha moment and it's filtered through. And if that's happening, that it's happening for everyone, the perceived us and the perceived them. I don't know if that adds to or gives you anything with your question or not.
It does actually, basically confirm what I was thinking in slightly different terms. But yes, exactly, that whatever kind of, it's individual inside out, but once you do that awakening process yourself, it does have to reverberate. And I think that it hasn't been able to in the past, and now it does. So it's individual, but it's also collective at the same time. So, yes.
Good question, James. Are we integrating or are we shedding, or is it a combination of the two? And I think it's definitely a combination of the two. Shedding things like these imposed or implanted, or whatever way you want to put it, aspects, as well as integrating all of ourselves. You can hit on me, Jana. I'll let you. That's how it feels to me. Yeah, it's absolutely a two-way process. Karen, did you want to say something else? Nope. Okay. JJ, your hand's still up too. Did you want to say something else?
No, I just forgot to bring it down.
Okay. Just having a look at comments. Once it's all into view, how we react will determine everything. Shedding the stories or egos, but integrating the real stuff. Yeah. Our infinite signatures. Letting go or shedding for me opens up another positive. Annie, You're unmuted, Dawn.
Hi. I just had a very weird thought come into mind that maybe we've lost.
Share it.
Can't quite hear me?
No, I said this is the place to share it.
Maybe we've lost this empathy because we don't need it anymore also. And that actually what we're going to watch is those that are of lower frequency, not heart source people, will all be eating each other. It's like a feast. And that's why we're not feeling that empathy that we felt before either, because we're going to watch the whole lower just disintegrate itself or disappear from our view. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's not
I never used the word.
It's not too similar to descriptions we've had in the past from various people about how this, like the split and the two earths and all of that. I mean, some people have described it as everybody will still be occupying the same space, but you just won't even know that the other exists. But I think we already share the same space with all these multidimensional aspects anyway. And sometimes you get a glimpse of them and sometimes you don't. But yeah, I mean, it's going to have to get to a point, if this split continues and we're all feeling it, where there's just no resonance. And even though we talk about leaving, these frequencies leaving, they're just leaving one aspect and hanging out over here, and they're leaving as far as we're concerned. So it may well be that it's still kind of existing over here somewhere, and it is just going to feed on itself. I don't know. All I know is the reality I'm in is changing, and constantly. And it gets cleaned up, and then it's like it goes like this, but it's still rising. But it's like we get an influx or a surge of something positive. Everything sort of settles, gets shaken up and cleaned out, and sort of drops a little bit, and then it kind of like the way Karen heals. She does this. JJ.
It could also be, turn that down. It could also be that it's the frequencies aren't leaving. It's just that we're not tuned into them anymore. So they're leaving for us. That doesn't necessarily they're actually going anywhere or dissipating, because obviously there's people that are still caught up in all that fear and all that sort of stuff. So for them, it's very real. It's just for us, we're no longer paying attention to it, or it's not on our palate anymore, or how did I put it? We're not affected, nor are we effecting them. In other words, they're just outside of our range of awareness, if you will.
Our range of resonance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember who first put that out that I first came across, was that you could live next door to someone, but they would be in a completely different reality than you, and you just wouldn't know they were there. So I don't know how that would work. But,
it almost strikes me that that's true even now. I mean, there's people all around us that live their entire lives. We have no clue, to have no interaction with them. So they might as well, I won't say they won't be there or aren't there, because they are, but yeah, I don't know who they are, and, all that kind of stuff. And I think that split, or that, how to put it, it's not a separation. Well, maybe it is a separation. It's that division line, or that chasm, or whatever it is between them, is going to grow wider and wider and wider, and to the point where we might completely tune them out. I mean, completely tune them out, so that we don't even know they're there at all. Now we know they're there. We just don't have any interaction with them, but they may just more or less kind of disappear from our reality. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier about the surrealness of getting up. It's like, this is kind of strange, like the whole fabric of where I am and what's around me and what I know is morphing. And if that continues, then all these folks out there that are caught up in all the fear and all of the trepidation and all of the fuckery and all that stuff, that will remain for them, just not for us.
Yep, it's funny they're looking at the comments. And Charlotte, I love you. Looking at the comments, people saying they're already living that reality in some respects. None of their neighbours know each other. But I want to ask a question before we close this one out, which is last week I talked about the veil between asleep and awake, thinning, for want of a better word, I guess. And you just brought it up then when you said when you woke up there was a surrealness to it all. But has anybody since last week, because I've had a few messages saying that it's starting to happen to them too, and the seeing faces seems to be increasing. Anybody? Mr. Tom, you're unmuted.
Yeah, the last, probably week, that sleeping and waking veil type thing has become non-existent. I can be awake and be asleep, and while I'm asleep, I'll come back awake and my hands are doing dream stuff. Mostly I'll be maybe stitching somebody up, or I'll be reaching for a book or something, and my hands, when I'm awake, they're doing that same thing when I'm awake as when I'm asleep. And when I'm asleep, I do see faces, I do see people, a lot of people in this group I see while I'm doing these things in the sleep. And when I'm awake, I don't know if I'm awake or if I'm asleep.
Yeah. And I guess I get asked every morning, how'd you sleep? I don't know if I did. I don't know which bit was sleeping, which bit was me awake, wishing I was asleep. I don't know which is which anymore. It's getting very blurry. And the faces thing, yeah, I mean that's happening that can happen as soon as I close my eyes. And I know I'm awake. I just got into bed, just closed my eyes, and there's these faces. And I remember that happening in 2012, I think it was, a lot. And that was different though. That was like a super fast collage of faces that felt like they were all me throughout time and space, right? Different versions of me that I was possibly integrating or something. Male, female, young, old, different races, different species, on a couple of occasions. But there was an aspect to that felt like it was all me. This is very, very different. This is, sometimes it feels like people from home looking in. Sometimes it feels like you guys, like you said. And it's, I don't know, there's a different quality to it. Is there anything else you wanted to comment on that one?
Not really. What recurring in the last couple of weeks, or maybe even a month, my initial dream that I can remember, I'm always in the same place. Big white room with some cots and beds and gurneys, and because I'm in a medical type situation, I'm like the head of this medical facility. And my first dream and my last dream always seem to be in this place, and that's where I see the faces. And that's where I wake up and go to sleep and see my hands doing things.
Well, there's been quite a few people lately who have felt that there is a battle going on yet again, that we are at war in certain, well, maybe all of them, I don't know, perceived dimensions. So maybe there is an aspect of you that is in fact doing that work. And that seems to be what's going on, like we're remembering that other aspect of us and what we're doing. and for it to be so physical, you know, where you're actually physically moving, going through the motions. It's interesting because, yeah, the idea of the memories, the dreams, the visions of a war type scenario, whether it's a battle or the ER, I'm hearing that a lot lately. It's interesting. Okay, so
if I might,
yep.
One little added thought. The faces that you saw back in 2012, whatever, were individual. In other words, your individual collective.
Yep.
Now we're seeing greater collectives beyond the individual.
Yep.
We're seeing LMH group collective. We're seeing humanity collective. We're seeing this collective, that collective. So the scope of the being aware of these greater groups has expanded. It's now we're looking at more larger and not intricate, but implicit groups. And there's lots of them. It's like all those agendas. Each group's going to have an agenda. And what we're doing is we're getting refamiliarized with the range, the scope, the number, the type, all of that kind of stuff of the groups that we probably have some connection to and are remembering. Kind of seems like it. Anyway.
Thank you. Chris just shared a Yellow Rose for Texas update from the 18th, which is, well, yesterday for me, but it probably needs a translation, which I'm not capable of giving. It says, the epic purge we watched of the 4 days of debris from the reef was followed by the loss of their optical window, which is what we hear the object is. The sun's showing signs of speeding up the nova. Everything is in place for it now. We've heard that their last repi was taken last night. The Moloch was screaming about no exit. The elves can be heard screaming and crying about their sentence to the pit. And many outside are talking about the pit being full to capacity. That's how much they lost. They lost it all with the last false flags, those storms. The prize winner today is an EEK. Okay, so someone's going to have to give me the translations for all these little acronyms. From the Yellow Rose for Texas page, who posted an update. She said that we are on track for the exit rails. They tilt upwards. They are currently draining the oceans so that they don't slosh on the roll. Ah, okay. She did get an answer of no, we won't be here on the roll, for those who asked. They told her we moved to the locked position for the final shift to the horizontal. A lot happens quick. Okay. Who's a Yellow Rose for Texas translator? Anybody? Is anybody a Yellow Rose for Texas? Language? No one? No, not me either. Never watched her. Okay. So I know that just going back to the original video that got a lot of attention, the Lies Nessa Told one, she talks about how it's, I don't know if it's like that and it goes like that, or if it's like that and it goes like that. I think it's that, Earth, and then it tilts this way and then we exit. So that's what she's talking about to some degree. I can't remember what the EEK stands for. And then one more piece. We might be able to see the locked position if NASA cams will show it, but not the actual roll, as that will be when there are expected power glitches, which answers the question of will we have power outages? Probably yes. She said people are already feeling the locked in place point because their equilibrium is affected. Klutzy, losing balance, ringing in the ears, sounds they can't identify. She left the message that the word from above is that they want all of you to know how much they love us and that the party is ready. And all are gathered now to welcome us home. They are crying with joy to see our VAR lining up and locking in for the final push-pull. The Ekas are us. Okay, thank you. What? I'm just reading the Yellow Rose for Texas thing. I know. There's so many acronyms in her stuff. It's hard to understand it sometimes. Who is above? I don't know. Home. But there was something in there that brought something up for me. Shit. No, it's gone. I'm just trying to see how that all relates. Oh, the water. That's what I wanted to ask about. I haven't been on active on Facebook or much online. So very little I did see was a lot of talk about water disappearing, and apparently prior to the hurricanes. So can I ask you guys what's being said in terms of an explanation for this? About, I mean, I guess the mainstream would say the hurricanes themselves had sort of sucked it all up or something, but what is being said about where this water went? Or and I heard some of it's already come back or something. Haven't seen any good explanations, is any? After the hurricanes, I say it's frequency. Either they are testing something or it's coming from some unknown source. A rare natural phenomenon was one excuse. We're having a lot of those. The wind blew it offshore. Supposedly it was sucked out by hurricanes but came back. Or did it come back though? Has it come back somewhere? Yeah, the water came back. Okay. Because I was seeing images of lakes and shorelines and stuff with it's all gone. In Houston, it supposedly did, but come back. It started before the hurricane in South America and Europe. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you would. Well, so it got picked up somewhere in all dumped in Houston. Karen, you're unmuted.
I've listened to here and there different people, and the most recent was a Crow 777. I can't tell if it was the most recent, but it was about the water, and it included the hurricane thing and the information about water disappearing. And I'd listened to a couple others that had been mentioning it too, and he talked about the firmament, and I'm reminded of Katrina's cat's dream vision, whatever, the firmament, and it being hard, and in the Bible, it separates the waters from the waters, right? And if things are changing here, the waters here are maybe moving to the waters above, or above the firmament, where perhaps they more belong. I don't know. There's a lot to do with water. But if water's disappearing here, I didn't feel like the reports of it returning, they didn't feel true to me, or it felt more like disinformation. Like they don't want us to know the waters are disappearing.
Okay.
You see, so I don't know. I haven't looked more into it, but just here and there, I picked this up.
Thank you.
And
Tom might have more to add. I think you've got your hand up again, Tom.
No.
Okay. Annie, you've still got your hand up. Did you?
Oh, no.
No?
I'm okay.
You good? That's interesting. Okay. I mean, we've seen so many species of animal disappear too. And the water, like you say, plays such a big part. The water holds all the information. I wonder. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and I was just reminded of the other information through Crow and some others about, water. Space is water. It's not the way they've portrayed it. It literally is water, and we have all of the language associated with NASA and maritime law, and all of that stuff is water language. It's not air language.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
What if it was taken and returned? If home is coming to us, that it has been fused back to its natural state. Huh. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to indicate that space is water. Everything from, the so-called space footage of the air bubbles and I don't know, you've got me thinking, Diane, too. What if it was being reprogrammed and then returned? Wouldn't take much because it would infuse everything. Yeah, that's a nice idea, isn't it? Okay. All right, guys, I think that's it. Unless anyone else has got anything they want to bring up. Otherwise, I think our work here is done. To answer that question, wouldn't it happen instantaneously? Not if you wanted it noticed. And everything seems to be designed to get our attention these days. But there's something to this for sure. And it doesn't feel like fuckery, really. Okay. Thanks, guys. Members, I will see you tomorrow. For everyone else, have a great week. Try and stay centered as we get buffeted around. But no 2 days are the same. Go easy on yourself. If shit's coming up, let it come up. Let it go. Don't hold on. Have a good cry if you need to, but just let it go. Nothing. Nothing. Let go of anything that no longer serves. And so much no longer serves. So we're all going to have a lot to let go of. But Love you all. Bye for now.